In our previous Evidence for God devotional, we introduced our listeners and viewers to a term that some were not familiar with or weren't fully aware of its meaning, and that term was ex nihilo. It is pronounced in various ways as ex nihilo, ex nihilo with a silent H. Regardless of how you pronounce it, ex nihilo is a Latin term whose first known use in English was the year 1656, when an agnostic named John Reeves wrote about his rejection of creation ex nihilo by God out of nothing. Since Christian authors as far back as the 1st and 2nd century, including Clement of Rome and the author of The Shepherd of Hermas, wrote on the biblical concept of God creating the worlds from nothing, Reeves, a rabid anti-biblical author, felt compelled to attack the notion of ex nihilo. And in reality, he wasn't just attacking Genesis chapter 1, but he was also attacking the science. The difference between biblical creationism and modern mainstream Darwinian theory of origins is how do we define nothing? By nothing, both sides mean that there was no space, time, or matter. The biblical creationist says that there was a God and nothing else. The non-theist or Darwinian says that there was a quantum vacuum with fields and energy and physical laws, but no space, time, or matter. So they define this original state as nothing. Obviously, you can see that the anti-biblical crowd is using language the way Satan always does, deceptive, dishonest, and not based in truth or reality. Now, God himself is not made of matter. John 4:24 says God is a spirit. He can take physical form, and he did in the person of Jesus Christ, but that was a temporary incarnation. God is eternally a spirit and not made of matter. God is omnipresent and not subject to and does not solely exist in space, though he can and does appear within space. And you can read Psalm 139 for a more descriptive explanation of that reality. And God is also timeless. He created time but is not subject to time. He doesn't exist in time, but he can enter into the time realm just as he did when Jesus came, and just as he can and does enter into the space realm and so forth. We believe what Genesis 1:1 says. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. But God is an uncreated being, and he created everything that we see in space, time, and matter out of nothing. The alternative theory is that this nothingness was a quantum vacuum with fields, energy, and physical laws, and it somehow just existed and then produced a big bang, the universe, and all that there is within that universe. And then they have the multiverse theories and such on top of that. But anyone sensible, any thinking person can see that they're simply replacing God with quantum vacuum. And they're replacing God's creative power with fields, energy, and physical laws. But where did that vacuum come from? What caused it to exist and produce, or to simply have, fields and energy with physical laws intact and in operation? I'll tell you where that quantum vacuum came from. The imagination of a lost sinner who doesn't want to believe in a holy God that he will stand accountable before on Judgment Day. That's all there is to it. This godless nothing with its quantum vacuum, it reminds me of Ross Perot's giant sucking sound illustration when he ran for president, I believe it was 1992. It's an invention of satanic deception in this case. And Mr. Reeves and all of its victims, they die and go to hell trusting in their quantum vacuum fairy tale instead of repenting toward God with faith toward the Lord Jesus Christ, believing on his death and shed blood on the cross and the power of his resurrection from the dead. After all, an uncreated creator coming to earth as a man to die and pay for the sins of the whole world makes perfect sense, and it'd be a piece of cake for an omnipotent, omnipresent God to actually perform.